at night. An analysis of the Carter situation. Joining us from Seattle, presidential historian Richard Shenkman, who teaches at George Mason University. Professor, look, I want everybody to know President Carter's American. He can say what he wants. I respect his public service. I respect his military service. He was a naval officer. This is outrageous. This is absolutely dishonest and absolutely outrageous, and CNN should be ashamed of itself, and so should President Carter. What say you?
Well, he's not in a particularly good position as an ex-president who had a failed policy with Iran. The problem is not just the hostages, but he was giving real support to the Shah right up until the point where the Shah was forced out of office. And that's in part one of the reasons why we have had so many problems with Iran ever since.
All right. Well, I don't even want to get into the Shah, but let's just pick it up with President Carter failing to do anything. You remember Walter Cronkite every night on CBS News, Professor, going, day 58, day 112, with the hostages being held in Iran. It was an embarrassment for this country. Iran was laughing at us. And I'll submit to you that the kind of weakness President Carter showed vis-a-vis Iran lit the fuse in the beginning for the Islamist terrorist movement we have now, sir. And it's like, well, Carter has amnesia. I know he's 83 years old, but come on.
Well, an argument has been made by some historians. Stephen Kinzer, in particular, wrote a wonderful book about Iran, in which he argues that if you take a look at what happened in 79, the revolution of 79, where Khomeini comes to power, and 9/11, there is a definite line between those events, and that's troubling. With Jimmy Carter, he didn't just sit there and do absolutely nothing when our hostages were taken. But the problem was he was paralyzed. He had a government that was divided. Secretary of State wanted to take one kind of action. The National Security Advisor, Brzezinski, wanted to take another kind of action. The ambassador to Iran had another policy. And Jimmy Carter, and this was true to form all the time with him, which was his real big problem, he waffled. He couldn't decide
he wasn't a
which
strong
person
leader.
He was going to go forward.
Well, here's what makes me angry.
He wasn't a strong
Carter
leader.
Implies in the conversation that we're not talking to Iran. We are. We have been talking to Iran at a high level for about a year, in Switzerland mostly, okay? So that's a lie. He knows it's a lie. Carter knows. So now I'm teed off on that. And you're absolutely right. Carter was a weak leader, and it was taken advantage of by Iran. And as soon as he got out of there and Reagan came in, Iran let the hostages go. As soon as Reagan came in, because they knew there was going to be a big change in this country. Now, the other thing is...
Well, can I argue with you on that just a little bit? There have been serious negotiations beginning in September, and then what happened was there was the Iran-Iraq war. Iraq attacked Iran, and that gave Iran a real incentive at that point to try to wrap up the hostage problem because they had to focus their energies on fighting Saddam Hussein.
I understand that, but they also knew that Ronald Reagan was a different animal. There. He was a different animal than Jimmy Carter.
They were worried about Ronald Reagan.
Right, they were worried about Ronald Reagan. Just like Iran right now is worried about Bush. And if Carter were president, it would be like, you know, all right. I don't want to denigrate Carter because I do respect his service, but I think this is flat-out dishonest. I mean, when he says that under Clinton we didn't have any problems at all with terrorism, it was like, I mean, what is this guy? What is that all about, Professor?
Well, he's factually wrong, of course. Subterraneously, George Will, calls what happened in the 1990s us taking a holiday from history. History was happening. We just weren't aware of it.
Yeah,
it was going on subterraneously.
I was so outraged. And by the way, I want everybody to know we've invited President Carter on his program for 11 years. But he would never get away with that, and he knows it, and that's why it doesn't come on. Professor, thanks very much. Once again, Bernie and Jane will analyze Wolf Blitzer's performance in CNN coming up. Next, it looks like